Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving deep into the story of one of the most monumental figures in history. A man whose life reads like an epic blockbuster movie. We're talking about Moses. His story is packed with drama, miracles, and a journey that shaped the course of nations. It's a tale of a baby in a basket, a burning bush, plagues, a sea splitting in two, and receiving laws straight from God. So, grab your popcorn, get comfortable, and let's explore the incredible life of Moses. Our story begins in ancient Egypt, a place where the descendants of Abraham, the Israelites, were living as slaves under a harsh and fearful Pharaoh. The Israelite population was growing so fast that Pharaoh got nervous. He worried they might rise up against him. So, he issued a terrifying decree. Every newborn Hebrew boy was to be thrown into the Nile River. It was a dark and desperate time, but in the midst of this horror, a brave mother named Jochebed had a plan to save her newborn son. For 3 months, she hid him, but agree. She knew she couldn't keep him a secret forever, so she did something remarkable. She wove a basket out of reeds, coated it with tar and pitch to make it waterproof, and gently placed her baby inside. With a heavy heart, she set the basket adrift among the reeds of the Nile River, entrusting her son's fate to God. His older sister, Miriam, watched from a distance, her heart pounding. Now, here's where destiny steps in. Who should come down to the river to bathe but Pharaoh's own daughter? She spotted the basket, and her curiosity was piqued. When she opened it and saw the crying baby, her heart melted. She knew he was one of the Hebrew children, but she couldn't bear to let him perish. Miriam, seeing her chance, bravely approached the princess and offered to find a Hebrew woman to nurse the baby. The princess agreed, and guess who Miriam brought back? Their own mother, Jochebed. In an amazing twist of fate, Moses' mother was paid by the Egyptian royalty to raise her own son. When he was old enough, he was brought to Pharaoh's daughter and was raised in the palace as her own son. She named him Moses, which means to draw out, because she drew him out of the water. So, Moses grew up as a prince of Egypt. He had the best education, the finest clothes, and all the privileges of royalty. He learned the ways of the Egyptians, their culture, their military strategies, everything, but he was living a double life. He knew he was a Hebrew, and he saw the suffering of his people every day. The injustice must have weighed on him heavily. One day, when Moses was a grown man, he saw an Egyptian mercilessly beating one of his fellow Hebrews. In a flash of rage, a moment of deep-seated identity erupting, Moses killed the Egyptian and buried him in the sand. He thought no one had seen him. But the next day, he saw 2 Hebrews fighting and tried to intervene. One of them shot back. "Are you going to kill me like you killed the Egyptian?" Moses' secret was out. He panicked. When Pharaoh heard about it, he was furious and ordered Moses to be executed. Moses had no choice but to flee. He ran for his life, leaving behind his princely status, his home, and everything he had ever known. He escaped into the wilderness, to a land called Midian. There, a fugitive and an outcast, he sat down by a well. He ended up defending a group of sisters from some aggressive shepherds. Their father, a priest of Midian named Jethro, was so impressed that he welcomed Moses into his family. Moses married one of the daughters, Zipporah, and settled into a new, quiet life as a shepherd. For 40 years, the Prince of Egypt lived as a humble shepherd, wandering the desert, likely thinking his old life was over for good. He was now 80 years old. His past was a distant memory, but God had other plans. One day, while Moses was tending his flock on Mount Horeb, also known as the Mountain of God, he saw something extraordinary. A bush was on fire, but it wasn't burning up. The flames danced, but the leaves and branches remained untouched. As Moses approached to get a better look at this strange sight, a voice called out to him from the bush. It was the voice of God. God told Moses that he had seen the suffering of his people in Egypt and had heard their cries. He was going to rescue them and bring them to a land flowing with milk and honey, and he had chosen Moses to lead them. God's command was clear. Go to Pharaoh and bring my people, the Israelites, out of Egypt. Moses was stunned, scared. He was full of self-doubt. Who am I to go to Pharaoh? He asked. He was a shepherd, a fugitive with a speech impediment. He made excuse after excuse. What if they don't believe me? What if they won't listen? God was patient. He gave Moses 3 miraculous signs to prove his authority. His staff would turn into a snake, his hand would become leprous and then be healed, and water from the Nile would turn to blood. When Moses still hesitated because of his speech, God appointed his brother, Aaron, to be his spokesman. With his fears addressed and his mission clear, Moses finally agreed. He returned to Egypt, ready to confront the most powerful man in the world. So, Moses and Aaron stood before Pharaoh and delivered God's message. Let my people go. Pharaoh's response was basically, who is this God? I don't know him, and I will not let Israel go. In fact, he made the Israelites work even harder, forcing them to make bricks without providing straw. The people suffered, and they blamed Moses. It was a rough start. But this was just the beginning of a divine showdown. God, through Moses, unleashed a series of 10 devastating plagues upon Egypt. The Nile River turned to blood. Frogs swarmed the land. Then came gnats, then flies. Livestock died. People broke out in boils, and a terrifying hailstorm rained down fire and ice. Locusts devoured every green thing, and a thick, oppressive darkness covered Egypt for 3 days. With each plague, Pharaoh's heart hardened. He would promise to let the people go in the midst of the disaster, only to change his mind as soon as it was over. The 10th and final plague was the most terrible of all. God warned that the firstborn son in every Egyptian household would die. But he provided a way of escape for the Israelites. He instructed them to sacrifice a lamb and mark their doorposts with its blood. When the angel of death passed over Egypt, it would see the blood and pass over those homes, sparing the firstborn inside. This event is, of course, the origin of the Jewish festival of Passover. That night, a great cry went up from Egypt. There was not a house without someone dead, from the palace of Pharaoh to the dungeon of the prisoner. This final, devastating blow finally broke Pharaoh's will. He summoned Moses and Aaron in the middle of the night and begged them to take their people and leave. The Egyptians, desperate for them to go, gave the Israelites silver, gold, and clothing. After 430 years of bondage, the people of Israel were finally free. They left in such a hurry that their bread dough had no time to rise. But the story doesn't end there. As the massive crowd of Israelites journeyed towards the wilderness, Pharaoh had another change of heart. Regretting the loss of his slave labor, he gathered his army, his elite chariots, and pursued them. The Israelites found themselves trapped, with the Red Sea in front of them and Pharaoh's army closing in behind them. They were terrified. They cried out to Moses, "Was it because there were no graves in Egypt that you brought us to the desert to die?" Moses, full of faith, told the people, "Do not be afraid. Stand firm and you will see the deliverance the Lord will bring you today." Then, under God's command, Moses stretched his hand out over the sea. All that night, a strong east wind blew, and the waters of the Red Sea parted, creating a path of dry ground with a wall of water on their right and on their left. The Israelites walked through the sea to safety. The Egyptian army charged in after them, but once all the Israelites were safely on the other side, God commanded Moses to stretch out his hand again. The walls of water crashed down, and the entire Egyptian army, their horses and chariots, were swallowed by the sea. Not one of them survived. On that day, the Israelites saw the incredible power of God and put their trust in Him and in His servant Moses. This event is one of the most famous miracles in the Bible, a symbol of deliverance and salvation. But the journey was far from over. Ahead lay a vast and unforgiving wilderness, a place that would test their faith, their endurance, and their new leader in ways they couldn't possibly imagine. Moses led the Israelites to Mount Sinai, the very mountain where he had seen the burning bush. It was here that God would make a covenant with His people. The mountain was covered in a thick cloud, with thunder, lightning, and the sound of a trumpet growing louder and louder. God called Moses to the top of the mountain, and there, amidst the fire and smoke, He gave Moses the 10 Commandments, inscribed on 2 tablets of stone. These laws were the foundation of their society, their moral code, and their relationship with God. Moses was on the mountain for 40 days and 40 nights. While he was gone, the people below grew restless and impatient. They went to Aaron and demanded he make them a god to lead them. Aaron, giving in to the pressure, collected their gold earrings and forged a golden calf, an idol. The people worshipped it, saying, "This is your God, O Israel, who brought you up out of Egypt." When Moses came down from the mountain with the tablets, he saw the people dancing and celebrating around the idol. His heart broke, and in a fit of righteous anger, he threw the stone tablets to the ground, shattering them at the foot of the mountain. It was a powerful symbol of how the people had already broken the covenant. Despite his anger, Moses' love for his people was deep. He interceded for them, pleading with God not to destroy them. He even offered his own life in their place. God relented. But the incident showed how difficult this journey was going to be. The people were free from slavery in Egypt, but they were not yet free from their old ways of thinking. For the next 40 years, Moses led this grumbling, rebellious, but ultimately chosen people through the desert. He was their leader, their judge, their prophet, and their mediator with God. He guided them through hunger and thirst, providing manna from heaven and water from a rock. He led them in battle against hostile tribes. It was an exhausting, thankless job. He faced rebellions, complaints, and constant challenges to his authority. But through it all, he remained faithful. Finally, after 4 decades of wandering, they arrived at the border of the Promised Land. But Moses himself would not be allowed to enter. In a moment of frustration years earlier, he had disobeyed a direct command from God. Instead of speaking to a rock to bring forth water as God had instructed, he struck it twice with his staff in anger. Because of this act of disobedience, God told him that he would only see the land from a distance. From the top of Mount Nebo, God showed Moses the whole of the Promised Land, the beautiful, fertile country that was the destiny of his people. He saw the fulfillment of the promise God had made to Abraham hundreds of years before, and there, in the land of Moab, Moses, the servant of the Lord, died at the age of 120. The Bible says his eyes were not weak, nor his strength gone. He was buried in a secret grave, and the people of Israel mourned for him for 30 days. Moses' legacy is immeasurable. He was a prophet, a lawgiver, a leader, and a liberator. He transformed a nation of slaves into a people of God, bound by a covenant and a moral law that would influence the entire world. His story is a powerful testament to faith, perseverance, and the incredible things that can happen when an ordinary person answers an extraordinary call. From a baby in a basket to a prince of Egypt, from a fugitive shepherd to the leader of a nation, Moses' life was a journey of epic proportions. His story continues to inspire millions, reminding us that even when we feel unqualified or afraid, God can use us to do amazing things. Thanks so much for joining me on this incredible journey through the life of Moses. If you enjoyed this deep dive, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the notification bell so you don't miss our next adventure into history. Let me know in the comments what you find most inspiring about Moses' story. Until next time, stay curious.